Husni al-Za'im was a Syrian military man and politician. Husni al-Za'im, whose family is of Kurdish ancestry, had been an officer in the Ottoman Army. After France instituted its colonial mandate over Syria after the First World War, he became an officer in the French Army. After Syria's independence in 1946, he was made Chief of Staff, and led the Syrian Army into war with the Israeli Army in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The defeat of the Arab League forces in that war shook Syria and undermined confidence in the country's chaotic parliamentary democracy. Coup of 1949. On 29 March 1949, al-Za'im seized power in a bloodless coup d'etat. The coup, according to declassified records and statements by former CIA agents, was sponsored by the United States CIA. Syria's President, Shukri al-Quwatli, was briefly imprisoned, but then released into exile in Egypt. Al-Za'im also imprisoned many political leaders, such as Munir al-Ajlani, whom he accused of conspiring to overthrow the republic. The coup was carried out with discreet backing of the American embassy, and possibly assisted by the Syrian Social Nationalist Party, although al-Za'im himself is not known to have been a member. Among the officers that assisted al-Za'im's takeover was Adib al-Shishakli and Sami al-Hinawi, both of whom would later become military leaders of the country. Al-Za'im's takeover, the first military coup in the history of Syria, would have lasting effects, as it shattered the country's fragile and flawed democratic rule, and set off a series of increasingly violent military revolts. Two more would follow in August and December 1949. Regime. His secular policies and proposals for the emancipation of women through granting them the vote and suggesting they should give up the Islamic practice of veiling, created a stir among Muslim religious leaders. Raising taxes also aggrieved businessmen, and Arab nationalists were still smoldering over his signing of a ceasefire with Israel, as well as his deals with U.S. oil companies for building the Trans-Arabian Pipeline. He made a peace overture to Israel offering to settle 300,000 Palestinian refugees in Syria, in exchange for border modifications along the ceasefire line and half of Israel's Lake Tiberias. Settling the refugees was made conditional on sufficient outside assistance for the Syrian economy. The overture was answered very slowly by Jerusalem and not treated seriously. Lacking popular support, al-Za'im was overthrown after just 4.5 months by his colleagues, al-Shishakli and al-Hinawi. As al-Hinawi took power as leader of a military junta, Husni al-Za'im was swiftly spirited away to Mezeh prison in Damascus, and executed along with Prime Minister Muhsin al-Barazi. Social. Al-Za'im worked hard to abolish wearing the fez, claiming that it was outdated headwear taken from the days of the Ottoman Empire. He is credited for giving support to women's the right to vote and run for public office in Syria. The law had been debated at the Syrian parliament since 1920 and no leader dared to support it, except Za'im. Once, senior Muslim clerics demanded an audience with the president, objecting to the increasingly liberal lifestyle being promoted by Syrian women. One issue of particular concern was the mixing of men and women at the Grand Hotel in Bluden. Za'im said yes, granting them an audience at the same hotel. When the clerics walked in that evening, he had them seated around a dining table, then snapped at one of the waiters, "Please prepare dinner, bring the whiskey, and call in the dancing girls." Za'im looked back at his guests. who were horrified at his attitude and no longer dared demand enforcement of Islamic codes. During the 137 days of his rule in Syria, however, Husni al-Za'im never executed anybody. He did have creative ways of punishing those who disobeyed him. However, when the quality of bread dropped to unacceptable levels, al-Za'im ordered all bakers to walk on the gravel, barefoot, until blood flowed from the feet. Family. Husni al-Za'im's wife Nouran was the First Lady of Syria from April to August 1949. The marriage took place in 1947, 2 years before Husni al-Za'im became President of the Republic. In order to please his young wife, Za'im asked her 11-year-old sister Karaman to live with them in Damascus. He treated her as a sister as well, and sent her to the lycée. Another sister orphan would visit them often, and took up the habit of playing with a guard, Abdul Hamid Sarraj. During the incidents of al-Za'im's arrest, and when the guards came to arrest him, Za'im got dressed and said goodbye to his pregnant wife. Relax, he asked her, I will be back soon to receive our first baby together. Naveen said, my mother and aunt told me that the couch they had been sitting on was riddled with bullets. Sarraj knew in advance that an attack was coming and told them to go upstairs to keep them from harm's way. Less than a week before the coup, which led to the execution of Za'im and his Prime Minister Muhsin al-Barazi, Nouran's cousins came to him, saying that they had confirmed intelligence information, saying that Sami al-Hinawi was planning to have him killed. Za'im summoned Hinawi and directly asked, Sami, my brothers-in-law are telling me you want to kill me. Hinawi replied, impossible. How can I kill my leader and friend? Quote, after the president was arrested on the 14th of August, Nouran and her sister were kept under house arrest for an entire week. No food was brought into the house, said Naveen. A Senegalese guard tried helping them by passing his own food through the window.